We are now living in unprecedented time. We are actually living in a great transition. And if you want to look back into history, what sort of context that we are in? We're probably in a time between 1914 and 1918, during the First World War, where all previous ideas were destroyed and rebuilt. We are probably in 1939 to 1945, Second World War. But probably between 1968 and 1974, where the global structure and system went through a fundamental shift, including US-China rapprochement and many other things that affected us in the last 50 years. We're probably between 1989 and 1991, when the Berlin Wall collapsed and when USSR collapsed. So we are in great transition, and we must see that we are in that sort of great transition, so that we must do things boldly and we must do things ambitiously. The new Industrial Master Plan that was launched by Prime Minister on 1st of September incorporated the National Investment Aspiration, which was developed by the previous government, adopted a few days before the last general election, but nonetheless it's a good framework. Therefore, one of the 6 items is to actually enhance ESG. And that NIA framework, which is placed right at the center of the new Industrial Master Plan, is meant to be our new dashboard. And I know when I speak about dashboard, I get worried because people may take it literally and think that it's a computer system. So recently I was at the Milken Institute and bumped into Nazir Razak, and he said, why don't you call it dashboard? Call it impact assessment. That for all your investment that comes into this country, we are not just speaking about the values or the numbers, how much is approved, how much is the approved value and all this, but actually look at its impact on our economy, whichever investment that comes in. And in the NIP, as all of you are aware, we listed 4 missions. First mission is to increase the complexity of the economy. The second mission is to tech up. And by tech up, we mean more automation, more adoption of technology, and more digitalization, and hopefully more innovation as well. And the third mission is to push for net zero. The fourth mission is to ensure economic inclusivity and economic security. So all this also in line with this whole framework of stakeholder economy of ESG. And if you seriously think through the future of the Malaysian economy, if someone asks you what would be the engines of growth in the years to come, I would have 3 answers, which is actually also hinted in the new Industrial Master Plan. Number 1, because of the geopolitical shift, the first engine of growth will be reindustrialization. Because we had a period of time since China joined WTO in 2001, when a long period of time of premature deindustrialization. But now, this is the moment that we will see reindustrialization. We are seeing shift and diversion from China into Southeast Asia, and we're seeing a lot of investment that comes in. In fact, MIDA announced yesterday, or 2 days ago, the first half investment into the country is actually the largest ever. I'm not sure whether anyone pointed it out, but to me, it's not just a number. The point is that there are major shifts to our region, and we must seize this opportunity of supply chain reorganization and go for major upgrading of our economy. The second engine of growth is what I would call tech up as well. The automation, the innovation, and all this. This will be an engine of growth for Malaysian economy that require a lot of investment. And the third engine of growth will be green transition. Green transition will will actually demand and actually require, and eventually will see a lot of investment coming into this area as long as we have the right policy framework and as long as we put it in the right context. So these are the context of why we are here to talk about ESG. We as policymakers must not assume that ESG is a burden to people who have to adopt it. Because if we start with the mindset, we will want an incremental approach. But incremental approach in a great transition is a waste of time. We must be bold and we must do the maximum because this is where opportunity will be available for Malaysia. And this is where we must steer the economy, steer our industry to this great transition. And our role as government, our role as policymaker, our role in this room, Bursa, SSM, Security Commission, and the government of Malaysia meeting, our role is to actually unlock potential. Our role is not to be behind the industry and say the industry lead, we listen to you. Our role is to lead them to provide whatever possible avenue and to actually help them to transition. Whether in terms of funding, policy framework, dealing with processes, our role is to be bold and to change what is not there yet and to provide that framework and that possibility. And once you have an economy-wide adoption, you will have economy of scale. For example, if we are pushing for net zero technologies, the more people adopt, the cheaper it will be. So we must be able to think beyond the noises, and we must be able to see beyond what is existing and go for the highest and boldest ambition. And why there's a need to harmonize, and why there's a need to have a single platform, why there's a need to actually believe that and actually work with everyone in the ecosystem to develop a Malaysian standard and not to have silos, not to have silo in our system, is because together we can lead and we can set standard for the region and the world. There are people who talk about no one size fits all idea. But actually we need a single platform. We need a single platform. We need to harmonize and we need to create a Malaysian standard. Why? Because if we look back into our history, there are two interesting developments in the 1980s. Maybe unwittingly, but eventually Malaysia set standards for the world. One is the halal standards. The other one is the Islamic financing and also banking system. Malaysia actually define for the world what halal is. Malaysia define for the world what Islamic financing is. Which is why I think I applaud what Bursa is doing. That you created a platform, you created a structure, and you are trying to engage other stock exchange to work together to create a global standard. And we must actually work together to harmonize it so that we have one single platform within the country and the public, the industry, the SME, the MSME do not have to say that there are so many systems. We together develop and harmonize one system so that we can scale up and we can actually be the global standard. Before I end, I want to touch on the questions of definition. Actually, it is a lot more easier to define the E than to define the S. G, G, anti-corruption, integrity, good governance. Those are the questions of whether you can execute. But defining the E, you can define ambition. Ambition can be quantified. Although I'll come back to the E shortly. Defining the S, I think, is the challenge for everyone. Not just in Malaysia, but around the world. We're shifting away from the old economic structure where the neoliberal economic structure, where employers are not prepared to pay much, work standards are not taken care seriously. But for us, we must go beyond just thinking about labor standards for foreign workers. The S must be broadly defined and with measures to carry and to handhold the industry to move to a more equitable economic structure in line with economic modernist aspiration in order to have a larger employee share of revenue, but also to ensure that we create a middle class society. We are a pyramid society where the top is small, the bottom is huge. And it is not politically and socially stable. It is not politically and socially sustainable in the long run. So we need to create a diamond society where the middle is big. Or whether you want to call it olive society, whatever. So you need to create a structure where the middle class is bigger than the bottom. Only when in a society where the middle is bigger than the bottom, that you will have long-term societal stability. And that has to be captured at some point by the ESG framework. Defining the S is a test for every one of us. The final note on the E. Last week I was at a Khazanah event, which I turned into an article in The Age. So Khazanah was launching their paper together with WEF on green transition. At the beginning of the booklet, it says that transport accounted for 37% of emission, which is the highest of all. Yet the whole thing was about energy, which is important, which is no doubt very important. I think we have not, as a society, so I told Dr. Faisal, I say, we have not thought through transport, urban planning, and how to reduce emission in the transport sector. We have adopted an urban sprawl model, and many of our listed companies make money out of sprawling the city and thinking that Seremban is Kuala Lumpur or Klang is Kuala Lumpur. But it is time for us to look into transport and urban planning and its relationship with climate change, its relationship with emission, to re-look into how we can organize our society better, how we can reduce emission so that we transition faster. If we transition the energy but not transport, energy market but not transiting, or not having a transition in transport and urban planning, we will still not get there. And it's important that we think through the E as well.